Hello beautiful people, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Shakayla. I create and share delicious plant-based recipes and inspiration. If you're returning, thank you so much for being here. I really do appreciate it. This week's video is all about tofu. I am showing you how to get the best tasting tofu every single time, as well as 6 different recipes that you can try at home that I know you will love. So let's get into the video. Now, this very first recipe is a crispy tofu and tahini Caesar salad. Y'all, this salad was so bomb and the crispy tofu was cooked to perfection. So I started out first by making the tahini Caesar salad dressing. Now, typically I would use a vegan mayo as the base of my Caesar salad dressing, but every now and then I like to switch it up. So I added the tahini, vegan Parmesan, Dijon mustard, vegan Worcestershire, I probably butchered that, sauce, as well as some lemon juice, fresh garlic, capers, which is a really good anchovy replacement, which Caesar salad is typically made with anchovies, as well as some hot water to thin out the tahini. Don't forget the salt and pepper. I added some more lemon juice because that's just what I wanted to do, but that is how I make my tahini Caesar salad dressing. Now for me, to get the perfect tofu, the tofu that's not like too mushy, it has a nice bite, it can absorb the flavors, I always use extra firm tofu or super firm tofu, and I freeze it. I freeze it directly in the package when I get home from the grocery store. I take it out, I let it thaw out. Once it's fully thawed out, then I start to cook with it. So this is what I typically always do when I'm cooking with tofu, depending on what I'm making. But if I want like some crispy, really delicious tofu, I add some olive oil, coconut aminos, maybe some seasoning, and cornstarch or arrowroot flour. Now, the cornstarch and arrowroot flour will help crisp the tofu up. So when you're looking to add different sauces, that is the perfect way to do it. You can either bake the tofu or you can add it to the air fryer. I typically add it to the air fryer because it's quicker, but the oven works just as fine in the event you don't have an air fryer. So I know I mentioned the cornstarch. Now I didn't add the cornstarch to the tofu this time. You'll see I do it in another recipe within this video, because I'm adding it to the breaded mix. I wanted to do a crispy breaded tofu for the salad that I'm making, so I combined some nutritional yeast. This is when I added the cornstarch, as well as some breadcrumbs, some salt, black pepper, and I just gave that a good mix. Now the tofu had been marinating for maybe about like 5-10 minutes. You can always marinate tofu longer and it will absorb more of the flavors that you added to it. So I just take the tofu that has been marinating, I added it to the breaded mixture, and then put those in the air fryer. I spray it with olive oil just so I can help it, crisp up a bit. And then I air fry it on like 390 degrees for about 12 minutes. I found that that's the sweet spot. And so now for the crispy tofu and tahini Caesar salad, we are assembling the salad. Y'all see how crispy that tofu looks? It's like breaded to perfection. I'm telling you, this works every single time and it is always so good. And I forgot to mention this, but after you freeze and thaw out the tofu, just be sure to squeeze the excess water out gently. Okay, so the next tofu recipe is a peanut tofu salad. This is perfect for meal prep if you want to start eating more raw vegetables. I would say it's on the healthier side, I guess, because of the fresh vegetables and really all the vegetables that we're using. We have the protein from the tofu and the quinoa. Y'all, I love peanut tofu salads. I love combining a peanut sauce and tofu just across the board. It's always so delicious. So for this peanut tofu salad, I started off by making my quinoa. I like to toast my quinoa before I add any liquid to it. It just brings out more flavors. It really does. I cooked it with some water, but highly recommend using broth if you have it, like a vegetable broth or no chicken broth. That's always a good idea. And now for my tofu, I just cubed the tofu up. As you see, I added in a little bit of oil, added some coconut aminos. Now, because I wanted like a different flavor profile, I added in some rice vinegar as well as a chili garlic sauce just for a little razzle dazzle. Okay, added in that cornstarch and gave it a good mix. Now here's an example of me adding it to the oven. So I baked it on 390 degrees for about 20 to 30 minutes. Just check on it to make sure that it gets crispy. Now I mentioned that this is a really good meal prep recipe because I put it in these like mason jars, the jars, or you can also use containers. You can use like storage or like meal prep containers as well. But we added in that cooked quinoa, the purple cabbage, red bell peppers, cucumber, mint, cilantro. I like to add microgreens as well as fresh carrots, and then edamame for extra protein. And because the tofu was still cooking in the oven, again, it took about 20 to 30 minutes, I decided to go ahead and make my peanut sauce. So the peanut sauce, I like to use the PB Fit peanut butter powder for the extra protein, but I also think it tastes really good. Now you can also use regular peanut butter if you like as well. So I added in my liquid aminos, some more sesame seed oil, rice vinegar, as well as the chili garlic sauce for a little kick, some black pepper, and then garlic salt. And then because I like for it to be like, just have like a hint of sweetness, I added in some agave, but you can do honey or maple syrup depending on what you prefer. And then added in the hot water to kind of thin out that peanut butter as well. Now, if you want more peanut, like more of a peanut taste, then add in more peanut butter. I was just adjusting now based on my flavor preference. And so I made 3 batches of this, so I was able to eat this for lunch over the course of 3 days. And when you want to eat it, you just dump it into a bowl, or you can eat it from the jar. I just find like it's easier to dump it into a bowl. I drizzle it with some of that peanut sauce, and y'all, this was, it's always so good. It's always so good. Another recipe for you to try using tofu is this sweet and spicy buffalo tofu wrap, y'all. I can taste this now. Okay, so, same old, we are prepping the tofu. We removed it from the package, we drained it, and then we're adding some olive oil, liquid aminos, transferring it to a bowl with some cornstarch. You can also use arrowroot powder again, in case you are not a fan of cornstarch, and then I'm adding that to the air fryer on, you already guessed it, 390 degrees for about 12 minutes. Now the sauce for this recipe is, you're just going to use some buffalo sauce, agave as a sweetener, or maple syrup, honey, whichever you prefer, black pepper, as well as some garlic powder, and we're just going to give that a good mix. Now, once the tofu is finished in the air fryer, you're just going to add it to the skillet, kind of just move it around. You can use a fork or spatula, whichever you prefer, to coat the tofu evenly. And then you can start on your wrap. You can put this in a taco if you want to. So I just took a tortilla wrap, added down some vegan aioli, some greens, some pepperdew peppers, onions, as well as avocado. And then I added in the tofu. Y'all, this wrap is good. I'm probably going to have this for meal prep this week. And I do want to mention, if you're not a fan of soy tofu, you can follow all of these recipes using pumpkin seed tofu, which is from the brand Pumfu, as well as chickpea tofu, lentil tofu, and maybe you don't even want to use any of those. You can also do this with like tempeh. Tempeh is a really good option, or even mushrooms. Now, if you watch my What I Eat in a Week videos, you know your girl is a big fan of tofu scrambles. So here I'm showing you how to make the best tofu scramble. So I start off by cooking the vegetables. So in here I have some trumpet mushrooms that I just cut up, added in my peppers, some onions, and then vegetable broth to just cook that down a little bit. Now I start to crumble in the tofu. And as you see here, if you're not a fan of soy-based tofu, again, you can try this with lentil tofu, maybe not chickpea tofu. I tried it with chickpea tofu and it was not a hit. So skip the chickpea tofu, but pumpkin seed tofu works wonders as well. And then the seasoning mix that I always use, so I add in some nutritional yeast, some garlic powder, a bit of turmeric, that helps with the color, black pepper, and some vegetable broth to help that cook down a bit more. I added in some kale, but you can do spinach as well. And now to get that like eggy flavor, I add in black salt, also known as kala namak. You can find this at international markets, the Indian grocery stores, or you can order it online. This helps, again, give meals or dishes like an eggy flavor. I've used this in potato salad, but I would typically say I mainly use it for my tofu scrambles. Now, who doesn't love lemon pepper flavored things? Like this lemon pepper flavored tofu, it's giving chef's kiss. Again, y'all know the routine by now. Start off with extra firm tofu that has been frozen and then thawed out. Break it apart, add in some liquid aminos, add in some olive oil, black pepper. I wouldn't say add in salt here because the coconut aminos has like the little salty flavor. Add in your cornstarch and just give that a good mix, and then you can transfer it to the air fryer. Again, if you don't have an air fryer or you don't want to use one, you can also put this in the oven. Now moving on to the lemon pepper sauce, I started off with some melted vegan butter, added in some salt-free lemon pepper seasoning, some garlic powder, some onion powder, some smoked paprika, and a sweetener. So I used agave, but you can again use honey or maple syrup, some lemon juice because I mean it is lemon pepper, and then some lemon zest for a little, a little extra flavor. Don't forget the black pepper, and then here you can sprinkle in some salt if you'd like to as well. And I just mix that up, kind of let it thicken a bit, and then I pour that over the tofu once it's finished. I like to serve my lemon pepper tofu with some greens, so I typically go with like broccoli, but y'all, this, oh my gosh, it's literally so good. And I think for this one, I actually coated this in arrowroot powder, and it got just, arrowroot flour, and it got just as crispy. So I'm telling you, you can use whichever one you have access to or whichever one you prefer. Okay, and the very last recipe in this video is a jerk tofu. So I served this with coconut rice as well as Brussels sprouts, but of course the focus of this dish is the tofu. So y'all already know, break the extra firm tofu apart, add in some olive oil, coconut aminos. I added some garlic powder and onion powder, as well as some black pepper. I mixed that up and I coated it with the last little bit of cornstarch I had. And I transferred that to, this is one that I cooked in the oven. And as you know, so I baked this one on 400 degrees in the oven, or you can bake it on 390 degrees in the air fryer until it is crispy. So for the Brussels sprouts in this recipe, I started off by trimming the ends and slicing them in half. I washed them just using some water, and then I seasoned it with olive oil, some black pepper, umami, salt, as well as some garlic powder. And then I just gave that a good mix. I just popped these in the air fryer, honestly probably on like the same thing that I cooked tofu on. Now for the jerk sauce, I started out by adding some olive oil, red onions, garlic, as well as umami, y'all know what I'm talking about, umami salt, and then some black pepper and the jerk paste. I used the Walker's brand of jerk sauce. I got that from Walmart, and then water just to thin that out a bit. And because I want to add a small amount of sweetness, I sprinkled in some coconut sugar, which you don't have to use it if you're not a fan or you just don't want to add additional sugar to this. Now for the coconut rice, so I just had some I just had some rice that I already cooked up, and I added in some canned coconut milk to that, as well as some salt and black pepper, and I let that cook down until the coconut milk was absorbed. And going back to the jerk sauce, added in a little bit more water, and then our tofu was finished. Y'all, look how crispy that looks. Added that to the skillet and just gave that a good mix, and then we served everything up. Y'all, this was, I love jerk tofu so much. I hope you enjoyed this tofu recipe video as much as I enjoy putting it together. Again, these are recipes that I've shared before, but I made a compilation video because I tend to get a lot of questions on how to cook with tofu and my preferred method and the process that I follow. So not only did I want to explain the process that I follow, but I also wanted to provide you with some realistic recipes on how to actually cook and enjoy the tofu. Be sure to let me know in the comments which recipe you plan to try, which recipe you have already tried, or even your favorite way to cook with tofu, because hey, I can always use the inspiration as well. I will see you in the next video, and I pray you have an amazing day. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.